Welcome to our connection, the podcast dedicated to bringing together rare disease patients, educating medical professionals and the public, and helping uncover clinical trials for the 95% of rare conditions that still lack FDA-approved treatment. I'm your host, Joanna, and today I'm honored to welcome two incredible guests, uh, twin sisters Elizabeth and Allison. And they both uh, have a familial type of cerebral uh, cavernous malformation, a condition that causes clusters of abnormal blood vessels in the brain and spinal cord. Well, we'll dive into the journey of CCM, the impact it has had on their lives, and how they navigate advocacy treatment and daily challenges. I'm so excited for this conversation. Let's get started. So starting off, Allison, can you uh, each, so I'm gonna actually go with both of you on this one. Can you each share a bit of how your journey with cerebral cavernous malformation, uh, when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed 7 years after having my symptoms. My symptoms began when I was in the Peace Corps in Mongolia. I started having numbness and tingling, and excuse the sirens. I live in a metropolitan city, but anyhow, I started having numbness and tingling in one of either my right or left arm. I contacted Peace Corps and they told me it was nothing. Don't worry about it. Later, this numbness and tingling turned into pain. I again contacted the Peace Corps and they said that everything was okay. When it occurred bilaterally, I contacted them a third time and they told me, don't worry, it's an overuse injury. I had these symptoms for my 27 months, about at least 2 years when I was in the Peace Corps. Down the line, during my close-out medical exam, I mentioned the fact that I still had these symptoms. Peace Corps again told me, don't worry about it. It's nothing to worry about. I was young and naive, and I thought, well, these are medical professionals. Of course, they know what they were talking about. Oddly enough, when I was in law school, I didn't really have these symptoms too much, though I had them enough. They're not as serious as when I had them in the Peace Corps. But I had this electric test, and they said I had a different issue, but I didn't really pursue it. Down the line, however, when I was studying for the bar exam, I was at a Seder dinner with my family. It's a dinner that Jewish people celebrate, and I had very severe symptoms. I had to lay down in a guest room at the house that I was in. A doctor at the table told my mom that I should get evaluated for some medical issues as soon as possible. I did. I was diagnosed with Thoracic Outlet Syndrome and went to PT, physical therapy, but the physical therapist didn't think that I had thoracic outlet, or if I did, there's something more serious. She referred me to a sports medicine doctor. He did this other test, again with the electrode stuff, but a different one, and they didn't find anything. He next got me an MRI. He took me to his office and then told me I needed to go see a neurosurgeon at Stanford, some random neurosurgeon. And he didn't really know what he was talking about, which isn't surprising because a lot of people, even specialists, didn't really know what this was. He referred me to the head of neurosurgery at Stanford. This was back in 2017. He told me that I had cavernous malformation and that I would need surgery and more to come.
Thank you, Allison, for your great response. And Joanna, for your wonderful question and leading this conversation.
Sure.
So I was diagnosed with cavernous malformation shortly after my dear twin sister Alison was diagnosed. Let's see. Oops. I wrote down the answers to this, and then it went all the way down to the end of the questions. So let me get back to what I wrote.
So we're looking for your symptoms, diagnosis, or what led to you being tested.
Yes, thank you. I was diagnosed with cavernous malformation shortly after my twin sister Allison was diagnosed with it. She started to develop symptoms while serving our country in the Peace Corps in Mongolia. Sadly, as with many rare diseases, her diagnosis took a long time to be revealed because she kept on being misdiagnosed. When she finally did get her diagnosis, she bravely underwent genetic testing to see if she had sporadic CCM or one of the two genetic subtypes of CCM. Once it was discovered that she had CCM2, a genetic variant mostly affecting people of Jewish ethnicity, I got an MRI and found out that I also had CCM2.
So were you experiencing any symptoms at that time?
That is hard to tell because for a long time it was hard to tell. Allison and I were born 3 months prematurely, and yet we also have cavernous malformation. Oftentimes, premature birth and CCM share many symptoms, so it is not easy to know for sure if I am a neurodivergent person with disabilities because of CCM, my premature birth, or a combination of them together. What I myself believe is that I am a proud neurodivergent individual with disabilities that include disabilities such as autism, ADHD, autism, vestibular balance difficulties, and problems of proprioception, depth perception, and other vision issues as a result of both diagnoses. Unfortunately, as I entered my late 30s, I started to display notable symptoms of cavernous malformation, the main symptoms being tonic-clonic seizures. I have now had 4 or 5 seizures, which 4 or 5 seizures, which one of my doctors and I strongly believe is correlated to a combination of long COVID, the COVID vaccine, and cavernous malformation. To clarify, I was always predisposed to seizures because of CCM, and then COVID and the vaccine kicked it into gear. Such a thing occurred because COVID had been proven to attack the weakest part of our bodies and also caused otherwise dormant conditions to become active. So in summary, I'm not sure if the disabilities I have, mainly proprioceptive issues, visual issues, and disabilities were caused by my premature birth or cavernous malformation. But I believe it was both. And as things progressed, I did have more classic symptoms of CCM, such as seizures.
Because you have the familiar form of, did you have other family members diagnosed before you were uh, the first, before you were the first in your family to learn about it?
I was the first one to be diagnosed in my family, at least officially. And it is sort of got the order wrong because I was diagnosed and I had my surgery before they did the genetic testing. They had done an MRI on Elizabeth because we were twins and also because I had multiple CCMs, cavernous malformations. CCM is short for cavernous malformation. They suspected that I had a genetic form of the disease. I'm guessing that they probably thought I had CCM2, given my dad's being Ashkenazi Jewish, but they eventually did the testing. But this is after I had my recovery and everything. They just took a proactive approach to test Elizabeth. Eventually, we did do genetic testing, and my father was positive. My half-brother, my other half-brother, and a niece, well, another half-sibling, and my older sister were not found to be positive for CCM, which kind of aligns with the fact that about you have a 50% chance of having the disease, and of the people who have children, perhaps 50% of those children will have the disease.
Since if they aren't carrier, if they don't actually have the condition, are they carriers?
I don't think so, because you have to have the actual defected gene to be a carrier. You can be asymptomatic. That
Right.
is for the other siblings and my niece.
Yeah, I wouldn't think they would think to test for it if you're not symptomatic, but
They do that now, especially for people who have maybe plans down the line to have children. Somebody within that group of our family wanted children, so they wanted to do some genetic testing for those reasons. Plus, the standard of care is to test family members in case they have issues down the line, more of preventative care. That way, you could get an MRI, however often that your doctor recommends. That way, you can monitor for any hemorrhage or any issues before they become more serious.
is CCM on the newborn screening?
I'm not sure. They are trying to add it, but it wasn't at the time that I had the screening. But this is something that is actively being addressed.
I know they're trying to make updates to the newborn screening also, because it doesn't catch anywhere near as many as it should. I was also a late diagnosis with homocystinuria. Medical.
But I'm glad, I'm sorry to hear that you were a late diagnosis. But I'm happy that you got answers, and I pray that they will find a cure for your condition and ways to mitigate it.
There's treatments, no cure yet. I was diagnosed at age 3, so is when I found out. But it was because I rubbed trisodium phosphate in my eyes, so it good and bad. Medical treatment. I see. How has having CCM impacted your daily life, both physically and emotionally?
Allison, do you want to answer first, or should I answer first? I'm not great at these because I've not done any, so I'm not sure who should answer first.
I can answer first. Well, I'm pretty lucky because while I did have surgery, which is something we could discuss later, I've been stable now since 2017. Though starting about 2 years ago, I had a seizure. And now I have to take every day lacosamide. I might have to change my background, but I have to take lacosamide twice a day because that is supposed to prevent seizures. I also have to just be a little bit more careful in terms of having people know where I am and things like that, and just trying to also, I personally try to not eat. Let me change my background 1 second. I'm not sure how to do that. So then I could show a cookbook. Uh-oh. Yeah, so I try to avoid emulsifiers myself. And thankfully, I'm part of an organization called the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation. And they have this cookbook, the CCM Healthy Cookbook. These are recipes submitted by people within the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation. They are patients, caregivers, people who could be both patients and caregivers. And they have all sorts of different things from breakfast to entrees, desserts. I try to eat healthy because of that. And then I also take the lacosamide, as I mentioned. I get yearly MRIs, both for my spine, because I had a cavernoma in my spine, which required surgery, and in my brain. I'm still pretty lucky because I live a semi or mostly normal life. Though I probably might be higher in my career and not just maybe better off in my career if I didn't have these suckers in my head.
Mhm. So, see, other than are either one of you on blood thinners?
No,
No.
I know, I know that CCM does have a bleeding um, aspect to it.
yeah. Blood thinners are highly discouraged
Okay.
unless you have another issue, like a heart issue or something like that. Then you're supposed to work with your multidisciplinary team. Good luck doing that sometimes. But
Yeah.
your multidisciplinary team, the heart people, the neuro people, are trying to come up with a plan. But blood thinners have a tendency to cause bleeding, at least for people with the genetic form of
Mhm.
CCM, and possibly the sporadic form if it's inoperable as well.
So back to your question about how CCM affects my ADLs and IADLs. CCM, my premature birth, long COVID, and mental health diagnoses, along with my other disabilities, impact my ADLs and IADLs, which in change affect my mental health. For example, I have a hard time with working 40 hours, doing all my hygiene routines, keeping my apartment fully clean, and executive functioning. Because of this, I sometimes feel subpar to others who do not have disabilities, which leads me to feel depressed. I love myself just as God loves me, but I sometimes wish I could be more like my other siblings who have strong executive functioning skills and can work full time without having difficulty with keeping a meticulously clean home, putting aside a higher amount of savings for retirement and me for retirement and rainy days. I also sometimes feel anxious or depressed about my diagnosis, anxiety about whether I will suffer a seizure, a bleed, significantly increased disability from a CCM, and worse about death. Although it is not logical, one of my fears is having a CCM complication and leaving behind a mess. I do know that my family would be more upset about the CCM complication, but it's still a fear that I have. Another concern I have is having a seizure or something and not being able to have my kidneys taken care of. Sadly, this happened a few times when I had seizures and had to go to the hospital via ambulance. By God's grace and good luck, I've always been able to have my neighbors take care of my fur babies, such as this beautiful kitty here named La Paz. I guess he's a little camera guy. So this beautiful baby named La Paz. And my other kitty, Sweetie, who is up for iron previously. Now I'm handing it back to you to continue this podcast. Again, thank you for being such a great leader in this podcast. Blessings.
Yeah. So, um, because the bleeding aspect also is going to ask you, do either one of you avoid vitamin K?
I wasn't taught to avoid vitamin K, but I don't take vitamin K. And to steal back to what Elizabeth was saying, I have some of those issues. I get some fatigue. I also am not as in a position where I could do as well in my career as well. Then I did pass the bar a year after
Mhm.
having this surgery. I did pass the bar in DC and I live independently, but I get overwhelmed as well by messes. Sometimes I walk a lot more slowly. I have a heaviness in my right extremities, but fortunately, I found aquatic therapy. I've been doing that for a while. He was my Here's a suit for swimming because I get cold as well, which is ironic. Elizabeth actually gets hot easily. Here's the other part of my suit. A friend bought it for me. She gets hot, I get cold, but I've been doing this aquatic therapy. It helps me with my balance, which has always been an issue both to my disabilities as well as my CCM. This has greatly reduced the heaviness in my right side, but one time I ended up losing my balance at a cat sitting place and fell down some stairs. I ended up being okay, but I told my physical therapist, and she was saying, well, don't go in stocking feet, and who cares about shoes in a house, especially if they don't tell you to not wear your shoes. I was worried that the shoes were going to make their marble floors dirty. But ever since that, I've had to adjust a bit and just either go barefoot in places and wear my shoes when I kitty sit. In addition to the fatigue, sometimes I have issues if I have to multitask and everything. But back to your vitamin K thing, no one has mentioned not to take vitamin K. I should ask. They have said to take vitamin D, however, because it could help reduce, or at least the chances of a hemorrhage.
It is funny that you say this, Allison, because it's a good lead. I take vitamin D with vitamin K and calcium because it is better absorbed in your body when you take the combination. And like Allison said, I've never been told not to take vitamin K. And in fact, my doctor, Dr. Levy, who has helped with long COVID, my disabilities, and with CCM, actually recommends vitamin D and vitamin K and calcium combination. Dr. Levy is one of my doctors. He's a naturopath, and none of my doctors, other doctors, have said no to vitamin K. And I find this to be very useful against bleeds and good health. This is just
Mhm.
one of the brands I take. It was on sale at the store.
Yeah. I was told to avoid it with when I was on Coumadin, but I'm not on Coumadin anymore. But luckily, I was able to get off of it. The So that's how I know it has an effect with bleeding. The other, what about the green vegetables? Do we that I know are high in vitamin K?
I eat every single green vegetable, and vegetables are my favorite food to eat.
Yeah.
I've only been taught to avoid emulsifiers, if you try to do, but it's a little challenging since I'm pescatarian and vegetarian. I don't eat dairy, poultry, or beef. So sometimes it's challenging to avoid such things. So by God's grace, I have never been told to limit vegetables. But it's something that is interesting to think about.
Allison, you mentioned you underwent surgery.
Yeah, I had my MRI of both the brain and spine. They determined that I had a CCM, at my C5 to C6 that had hemorrhaged semi-significantly, or somewhat significantly, I should say. The Dr. Gary Steinberg at Stanford was one of the preeminent experts in cavernous malformation, perhaps behind Dr. Isam Awad at University of Illinois, Chicago, because he is the one who kind of first discovered or known about CCM and all these things. But that's a story for a different time. Determined, and this is Dr. Steinberg, determined that I needed surgery because I had hemorrhaged into the spine, and that if I didn't get surgery, I would risk paralysis, and more less likely, because it wasn't in the brain, I risked death as well. I remember that at the time I was studying for the bar exam, and I had gotten past the time where I could get my refund for the bar, and it was a little bit of money that I spent. Dr. Steinberg wrote a note saying, "Please excuse my patient, Allison Mintz, because she's having surgery or cavernous malformation." One of the things that I discussed with my mom and Dr. Steinberg was that I wanted to take the bar exam first and then have my surgery. Dr. Steinberg told me, "Well, you certainly can do whatever you want, but you risk paralysis or death. You should weigh your options, and this is just going to be temporary. Get the surgery and then go from there." Within a week or two after being diagnosed with cavernous malformation, I remember being at Stanford and undergoing surgery. I don't remember this at the time, obviously, because I was under anesthesia, but when I woke up, they told me that prior to having the surgery, when they either administered the lidocaine or the anesthesia, that I had a seizure on the operating table. I was still in the halo, they told me, and they had to take me out of the halo. They had to do a timeout to see if I would be okay. Thankfully, because Dr. Steinberg was one of the best doctors around, he was able to nonetheless perform the surgery. He was able to remove the whole cavernoma, which is sort of in the shape of a mulberry between my C5 and C6. I'm not sure that you'll be able to see it, but I still have otherwise it's okay, but I still have a sort of a scar on the back of my neck somewhere around here from the surgery. The surgery itself was pretty easy. They remember my older sister coming in to support me, and she had brought food from one of my favorite grocery stores before the surgery. Then I didn't remember much. I woke up and had my recovery time, and eventually I went to the neuro ICU floor. I remember that one day, very soon after my surgery, I had my first and only panic attack to date. I was very delirious with the pain and started screaming. A nurse on her way out heard me and ended up staying with me for a couple of hours to make sure I was okay and everything. I feel bad because I was never able to thank her, or I don't even know who she was, but I'm hoping that she knew that how thankful I was, even though I didn't really express it. But I'm hoping she knew that I just wasn't in the position to be able to thank her. One of the things I remember at the hospital was, I'm not sure whether you ever saw the movie Jaws, but you can go to any movie with the scary music before something would happen. I remember that each time they would come and do the vitals thing, they would be on wheels. I would hear those wheels coming, and I know that they knew that they would do the vital check and everything. It would wake me up or make me nervous and everything. But thankfully, I ended up being able to have my MRI. They determined that everything had been removed from my spine. They determined that I didn't have any other issues within my brain, and they discharged me to a rehabilitation home where it was an acute rehab facility where I stayed for a few weeks. They wouldn't let me walk. They made me stay in a wheelchair. I had to ping a button every time I wanted to use the bathroom. I also was on this disgusting thickened diet because they were worried because they were worried about aspiration or choking on my own food. They had to do this nectar thick diet. A speech therapist evaluated that I needed this, and I had to basically eat this thickened diet with my food, which wasn't very good at all. A week or two, or sometime after I was at the rehabilitation center, I was able to get out of the wheelchair and use a walker. And even though I'm a lot luckier than a lot of people, it is weird. Even though I was at commission only for a short time, I had to figure out how to put one foot in front of the other. Again, I had to figure out how to be steady on my feet and everything. They wouldn't let me just walk by myself. I had to have someone or two people sometimes behind me. I'd have my walker, and then have someone kind of supporting me, and then they'd have the wheelchair there just in case I needed it. After a little bit while longer, I was able to do some rehab at the facility. Eventually, I went home, but they had to move my bed all the way upstairs because they didn't want me to be all alone downstairs, but downstairs where I was living or anything like that. I was able to do neurorehabilitation at Stanford, which helped me a lot because that helped me be able to, at least, I never really walked 100% normally because of the CCM and my disabilities, but I was able to get back to being able to do that a lot better. I was able to gain my strength. I had a difficult time. I've always had a difficult time because, as Elizabeth said, we are born with disabilities with fine motor skills, but these are even worse after my surgery and everything. But luckily, I did pretty well despite all of that. And I just do these yearly MRIs. And thank you for bringing us on, as Elizabeth said.
So Elizabeth, have you had any surgeries?
Not any surgeries related to CCM, but others related to other conditions, like strabismus surgery, maybe in hindsight that is related to cavernous malformation, I'm not sure. And then like usual things like wisdom teeth and some other ones.
Mhm.
So that's all I'm going to say about that. I pray to the Lord that I never have to have a CCM related surgery because the recovery is challenging.
You were mentioning MS. It does have some similarities to MS.
I did not, I must have said CCM.
Yeah, I mean, no, does MS have is there a relationship? Do they have because I know that are you at risk for MS because of it?
I have no idea because I don't know anyone who has MS. And all I know about MS is what I've seen briefly in TV shows. So that is something I
Yeah.
have to research more.
And this is more of a differential diagnosis. I believe people may conclude that you have MS or arterial venous malformation or any number of other things that are not CCM related. Though interestingly, my father was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease way prior to this CCM. And I'm thinking he probably still had Parkinson's disease then. He also had the CCM as well. Nobody has told me whether I'm at a risk of getting Parkinson's disease. Everything's in my medical history at Stanford. As well, I currently am in DC, but they don't necessarily know a lot of what's going on. But nobody at Stanford has told me that I was at a high risk. Nobody has mentioned that you could get MS. There are some people within the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation community. It's really cool organization. It is created by Connie Lee. About 20 years ago, her daughter was diagnosed with cavernous malformation, And at the time, there was nothing out there for people with cavernous malformation. She decided that initially she was going to create the Alliance to Cure just as a support group for people, patients, and caregivers to get together and have a group to speak with. Down the line, however, she decided that she's going to speak with Dr. CCM Allison at University of Illinois, Chicago, because she wanted to do more than just do a support group. She wanted to create a whole lot of other things. She helped establish a standard of care, which is designed for specifically for people with cavernous malformation, everything from your PCP people to your neuro people to, if you want children. I don't want children, but nevertheless, that's one of the things that they do to living with CCM and any number of things. She has established over, I think, 20 or 10 centers of excellence, which are places within the United States right now that not only have expert doctors who can treat cavernous malformation, but also participate in research, whether they be clinical trials or other things like gathering patient data or doing gathering data on the gut health and things like that. Additionally, she has other facilities that don't do the research, but are nevertheless clinical centers, places where people can get assistance from experts in cavernous malformation. Additionally, she has been working with scientists and a drug company, Recosian Pharmeceuticals, which is actually right now, cavernous malformation is one of the 95% of drugs, as Joanna was saying, that don't have an FDA-approved cure or treatment. There's about, I forget how many people they said. I think they said about 10,000 rare diseases, if you remember correctly. Joanna?
There are 10,000 rare. There are a little over 10,000 rare conditions. Which I just found out this year.
I think it was 30. I think they said 30.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I believe it was 30 million. Because it's, I don't know, I know we fill up 4 flights of stairs every single time we go, plus overflow. And this was actually a light year. As far as attendance, there were a lot of people who weren't there this year. So it,
We're talking about the Every Life Foundation.
I'm talking about the Every Life Foundation, that event. That's where I see the majority of the people with the rare conditions. I haven't been to a Global Genes event, nor have I been to Nord's come here, but their events normally are pretty small. And the other one is Rare Patient Voice, who has some events, who may have some events, but mostly um, they're like, yeah, they are more supportive of research and that type of thing.
That's that Connie does. It's just helping with the research. With the Alliance as a whole, we have weekly support groups on Mondays and Thursdays. We have regional groups, especially in New Mexico, because there's a lot of patients with cavernous malformation in New Mexico. There are 4 known forms of cavernous malformation right now. They have a sporadic form of cavernous malformation, which means it's not genetic. You usually only have one cavernous malformation and possibly some other issues around your brain. And then there are right now 3 known genetic forms of cavernous malformation, CCM1. There are 2 forms of that, I believe, within that type of CCM, one being the common Hispanic form of the disease. This is the one that affects most people within cavernous malformation. It affects mostly people from Hispanic heritage, initially from a family, some family in Spain. Then the family traveled to Mexico, and eventually they went to New Mexico, Texas, California. They have what I have, and Elizabeth has, CCM2. We have a founder's mutation similar to the common Hispanic one that affects mostly people with Ashanaki Jewish heritage. There's another European one, I believe, there too. And then they just have another form of CCM2 that just has an issue with a gene. Well, all of us have genetic malformations, but this other form of CCM2 is not from a founder's mutation. And then CCM3, that is the most severe form of the genetic form. It affects children more often. People have more serious issues with that, whether it be, and we're on at risk for strokes, seizures, paralysis, death. But the CCM3 community are the people who are most at risk and have the most severe symptoms. Now, they are exploring whether there's a fourth or fifth form or something like that, because there are people who have multiple cavernous malformations, but through genetic testing, they don't have a diagnosis of either of the three forms of genetic cavernous malformation, and therefore they're exploring maybe a fourth type of cavernous malformation, but there's not enough information on that to be able to know anything like that yet.
Do you know when they're expecting to be done with that? Whether they might have some information?
I don't know. Connie would know that, or she'd be more likely to know. The research takes a long time to come. Right now, I think they're focusing on trying to help the people with the known forms, whether it's the people with the common Hispanic condition, the people with the CCM3, such as Recosian Pharmeceuticals, which is, I mean, we just finished our phase 2 study with Recosian Pharmeceutical, which is a smaller drug company based out of Salt Lake City, Utah, in the United States. And they saw pretty promising results. Right now, it would be considered a cure, but it would be considered the first industry-sponsored, FDA-sponsored treatment. Right. Currently, the only options for CCM are either wait and see or brain or spinal surgery. Those are not really great options, but at least we have those options. They are also working potentially on a non-medical cure with guided focused ultrasound. They're going to do a safety study on that on patients, maybe in a year or so. But right now, things are very unknown and everything. But the current plans to hopefully have these studies come up in the next part of 2025 or early 2026.
Good to know FDA is actually sponsoring some of these. I didn't know they sponsored it. I knew they approved them. I just didn't know they sponsored them.
Well, they're not necessarily sponsored by the FDA or NIH, that they do have some of those studies. The Alliance does a very good job of doing public-private partnerships. So some of the studies they've done, such as one with cholesterol medicine, was both a private partnership stuff as well as public partnership. They do a combination of them right now. The positive of the one that they did with the cholesterol atorvastatins is that while it didn't show the results that they were looking for, they were able to gather a lot of information, learn a lot of information that they are able to pass on to other people conducting studies of things. This is similar to what they may do with the Recosian Pharmeceuticals. What's interesting about Recosian, both good and bad, is that they are a company that uses AI to conduct their studies. They primarily focus on cancer drugs as well as rare disease drugs. I don't really quite understand that, though. Chris Gibson, the CEO of Recosian, tried to explain it at a webinar brought on by the Alliance to Cure. That's another thing that the Alliance does, is they put on these webinars every month or so. And he was talking about how they just do all these studies, able to take drugs that may not have worked for other things, or they're able to, and everyone says AI, which is scary. And I admit that there are scary aspects of it, but they use like human intelligence, they use the research that has been conducted and everything to come up with these drugs. And now this drug, REC 949, is going to go to phase and everything. And then there may be other studies, but that drug company, Harvard, or whatever they're called, they've kind of put everything on hold because they want to see how the other drugs do, as well as the fact that the drug with the cholesterol drug failed. They want to put that drug on hold, but we do have hope, at least with Recosian and this guided focused ultrasound and any number of other things that may occur down the line.
CCM can cause unpredictable symptoms. Do either of you have a care plan in place for emergencies?
Sort of, but I definitely need to improve my emergency care plan. Before I continue, I want to first say that this answer has a trigger warning. Mental health-wise, cavernous malformation, my disabilities, post-COVID issues, and my mental health conditions of clinically diagnosed OCD and self-diagnosed depression and anxiety has led my therapist to make a mental health safety plan for me. It's important to note that prior to COVID, I never had self-harm ideations, but after being infected, I started to have ideations. Tragically, some other people with post-COVID issues deal with ideations as well. This is why my mental health counselor created a safety plan for me. CCM is also a catalyst for my mental health conditions, and just as with COVID, some patients with CCM also have mental health troubles as well. My CCM-triggered seizures likely also led to my ideations, since seizures cause changes in the brain. To be clear and to put people's concerns at bay, I will never act on my feelings, but it still scares me. Thankfully, because of my faith and belief in God, not wanting to leave loved ones behind, the desire to care for my plant babies and fur babies, and the fact that I have a good friend who knew someone who killed themselves prevent me from actually acting on my feelings. My safety plan also acts as a tangible tool to help me. Additionally, my various therapists have taught me skills to be more organized and to improve impulse control and executive functioning, which are hindered in part because of my CCM. Second to last, my wonderful naturopathic doctor, Dr. Levy, from Soaring Health and Wellness, and other specialists such as Dr. Steinberg and the seizure team in Providence have given me both homeopathic and allopathic medication. Along with prayer and God, my physical and mental health symptoms and inflammation, post-COVID issues, and CCM have caused challenges for me. Therefore, I have on my phone a area where doctors and medical professionals, paramedics, can look at an emergency information about my conditions without even having to unlock the phone. And I have an Apple Watch too that will help a lot of people if I didn't want to say Apple because I don't like, so please eliminate that. A smartwatch, I should say, that will help a lot of people if I pass out or have a seizure. Unfortunately, though, it's not designed necessarily to detect seizures or falls, so I want to get a life alert system and a medical ID bracelet. This interview, along with my sister, is encouraging me to do this more and will motivate me to do this more quickly. And so that is a positive. And lastly, I want to say that I also have a plan for my kidneys, just in case I have a seizure. I've had to go to the ER and haven't had people to take care of my kidneys. Therefore, I've talked to neighbors who have said that they can take care of my kidneys if need be. I've told them where keys are if I need them to care for the kiddies. And they're kind of in this like lockbox thing. The neighbors have the passcode for so that they can access my apartment if need be. So in summary, a mental health safety plan is in play, as well as care for my kiddies. The emergency information on my phone, including emergency contacts, are what I have set up at the moment, and then moves to get a Life a Lot bracelet, medical bracelet, and a and information about what to do if something happens are going to be factored in. And I'm going to work with my counselor to get this done, since I also have ADHD and need assistance sometimes with getting things done.
They say that doctors make the worst patients and lawyers make the worst clients. I don't really have a plan. Mostly, I do have a will that I made, a holographic will that I made many years before I had my diagnosis. I do have some friends on my iPhone that can track my location, friends and family. Therefore, if something would happen to me, they can see where I am. I have been a good advocate for myself because I was able to find great people at Stanford who were able to treat me. But then I moved to Washington, D.C. because that's where I took the bar exam, passed, and now where I live. It's been a battle to find people who know about cavernous malformation, who are competent to treat cavernous malformation. But I've cycled through a couple of primary care physicians, a couple of neurologists, and finally I found people who can at least treat my cavernous malformation or walk with me with my cavernous malformation. And then I've kind of expressed some of my things to family members and everything as well. I have information on my phone for people to follow, such as my conditions, my doctors, what to do, the fact that I'm on lacosamide, and things like that. But I don't have as much of a emergency plan as I should have taken advantage of the fact that I've been stable for 7 years and things. But similar to Elizabeth, I keep meaning to do that and just end up not doing it.
Conversations have you had with your doctors or genetic counselors about potential risks for future generations?
We haven't had conversations because a lot of the information is due to HIPAA and thing. I have not had any conversations with my doctors about that for other generations outside of my family. And as we said, neither Elizabeth nor I want children, but I have given permission for the doctors who may be diagnosed with cavernous malformation to speak with me. They could give my information, whether it be people in my generation, whether it be people in an older generation, whether it be people in a younger generation, because I think that I can provide support for these people and everything. But it's not really a conversation that I need to have for me. though I do know a couple of people who do want children. I have talked to these people before about potential risks, and then I have to continue to discuss matters with them. For instance, somebody I know within the Alliance community wants children. They want to do in vitro fertilization or what have you. But I didn't know that if you do this in vitro, then you could put yourself at risk for having a bleed and everything like that. I need to have a conversation with this person and let them know about this. And then luckily I know of a doctor, Dr. Lindsay, I forget her last name, but Dr. Lindsay out of Mayo Clinic, who is a neurologist, and she's able to speak with patients about this.
So similar to Allison, I have not had any really formal conversations because I do not want children. I love being a cat and plant baby parent, but I definitely do not want kids of my own because of my disabilities. However, my team of medical professionals do have me take folic acid as a supplement to my anti-seizure medications because it can cause complications in pregnancy. Here's another trigger warning. But I do not intend to have children. I am grateful for the folic acid because even though I am a proud virgin as a result of my religion, things happen. So if I ever become a parent or become pregnant against my will, I'm happy that the folic acid will act as a protective factor. That's all I'm going to say about that. But thank you.
Do you follow any specific lifestyle changes to help manage CCM? For example, avoiding certain medications, limiting stress, or making dietary adjustments?
As I mentioned before, I try to avoid emulsifiers. I have this book of recipes that assist with that. Additionally, I have an app on my phone called FIG, Food is Good, FIG, and it allows you to go to a grocery store or anywhere and you could scan the ingredients after you create your FIG. I try to avoid emulsifiers. I'm not very good at this. I know that I should avoid sugar, but I'm getting better, but I don't really do that. But I do try to, in terms of food, use the FIG app. And then I have another, I'll show you what the FIG app looks like in a second. I also try to avoid, I do drink a little bit, but not a lot. I never really was a big drinker, but even more so now. My neurologist said that I can drink occasionally, but I shouldn't drink a lot because of the fact that you have these, I'm taking lacosamide. Here is what I have to find a better, here's what the FIG app looks like. It's green and everything, and then you just could kind of scan foods and it will tell you if it has emulsifiers, if it has excess salt, if it has sugar, in my case, if it has dyes and things. Therefore, I try to limit those. I try to also, which I'm not very good at, but I try to get better sleep then. I still have to work on that. I do try to limit my stress as much as I can. And for me, I get immense assistance from the Alliance Secure support groups on Mondays and Thursdays. Because one of the real things that I'm sure you know about, Joanna, is that, and I don't, it's weird because, like, in one way, like, how can I be so vain to think I was the only one with this rare disease. And yet part of you thinks, well, I'm alone. I feel so alone. And I felt that way, even though other people in my family had the disease. It wasn't until I found the Alliance to Cure that I knew I wasn't alone, that other people had these issues. And we all tend to go down the rabbit hole a lot, which I do. I'm one of these people who go down rabbit holes. It's hard to know, well, is this, that, or the other thing? Is it cavernous malformation related? Is it related this, that, or the other thing? And being able to ask people within the cavernous malformation group, whether it be at the support group, whether it be at on their Facebook group, kind of helps put my mind at ease as well. I try to also avoid, I don't really do blood thinners, but I put on my medical information on the phone, caution with anticoagulants, blood thinners, please consult specialists if I need those things like that. I used to put no blood thinners, but then that was a bad idea because of the fact that you may need them down the line and what have you. I do my aquatic therapy as well, which has been very helpful. And then I do some in-person events as well. My friend Amber and I one day were meeting for a walk to raise money for the Alliance and in DC, and we just were thinking, oh, it might be good to get the group back together with the Alliance in DC. And we talked to the CEO of the Alliance, Connie Lee, as well as Donna and Linda, who work for the Donna Creighton and Linda Feature, who also work for the Alliance, thinking, oh, somebody else is going to do it. And Connie's the type of person, of course, you could say no to Connie, but she's the type of person that if you could do it, you don't say no to her. So I've helped reestablish the DC group, which just helped me as well as other people. And then a lot of the information that I do is trying to help other people, whether it's people with cavernous malformation or just people who may be dealing with a condition, and helping people kind of helps me as well. And then I just get the yearly MRIs, try to avoid radiation where I can. I definitely put myself in a situation where I have advocates who want to work for me, as opposed to people who are unwilling to, doctors and things, who are unwilling to learn things like that. I make sure that I find doctors who know what they're doing and who want to assist me and everything. I definitely try to exercise and everything like that. And then I also try to avoid probiotics. Elizabeth disagrees with that, but to each their own and all of that. So those are the things that I do in my life.
Thank you, Allison, for your really wonderful answer. And you have definitely taught me more about CCM, given me information, and even recommended doctors for me, and informed me about the support. So yes, similar to Allison, I significantly limit certain foods such as dairy, gluten, soy, eggs, and sugar. Allison does not avoid many of these foods except for sugar. I do this as suggested by Dr. Levy, who works at Soaring Health and Wellness Clinic. This has helped reduce long COVID symptoms, CCM, and seizures. Dr. Levy now believes I am pretty well healed from long COVID, although he still thinks I have inflammation and now mild long COVID. Things have improved for me. To be clear, I still eat these foods on a special occasion, but greatly limiting these foods has made it so that I do not have as many seizures and have not had any seizures for many months, maybe even a year. Medication I avoid include blood thinners, ibuprofen, and Willowbrook, as well as antibiotics because they can cause brain bleeds. Well, not antibiotics, but blood thinners can. As for the antibiotics, I avoid them because after my first ever seizure, I was hospitalized for several days, where I acquired hospital-acquired C. diff, and I am now severely at high risk for relapse if I take antibiotics. So I avoid them as well. I will, of course, take some medication, blood thinners, and antibiotics if it is an emergency or life and death situation. But I do everything in my power not to take blood thinners or oral antibiotics. A final medication I do not take is the mRNA jabs because Dr. Levy thinks they may have helped lead to my seizures. He is not against all vaccines, but believes more research must be done on the newer shots. Let's see, other non-food and medication-related precautions I take are not taking a bath alone, always wearing a helmet when I ride my bike, as head trauma can cause severe complications of CCM. Additional safety protocols and tools I use are N95 masks, such as this one from Australia, or this one from well before, or even when I go to a high-risk area, this one for 3M. Let's see. Of course, additional safety tools I use are CPC mouthwash, X Clear, which I have here. That's supposed to help with preventing illness. Niacin, which was X and niacin. I also, of course, take my prescribed medications and homeopathic supplements that are recommended by Dr. Levy and friends, of course. I always ask my doctor about CCM medications and CCM complications and counterindications. Lastly, I limit my stress, try to get good sleep, though that's not always easy because of my ADHD. To limit stress, I go to prayer, meditation, and my 4 babies, and use the skills my therapist taught me to reduce stress and anxiety. Allison and I are both supporting each other in our goal to limit sugar as well to just once a week. So limitations to antibiotics and other added things such as mitigation methods for COVID and other anti-inflammatory stuff like this Reparovite from Dr. Levy, Terovite from Dr. Levy by Apex Energetics. And I forgot to mention I take stuff for my brain, such as Adaptive by doTERRA. It helps with executive functioning, impulse control, and thinking more clearly. And back to things for immune system. Allerade, very good. You can get it on sale at Fred Meyer. And my usual anti-seizure medications like lacosamide and levetiracetam, otherwise known as COVID, and not COVID, Tepra, and it looks like this. So those are just some of the things I use. And I myself use probiotics because of C. diff. I'm always at higher risk for C. diff. And so to avoid it, I take probiotics. And probiotics help me with inflammation. So there's a lot of questions as to whether or not people with CCM should take probiotics. I feel like the benefits outweigh the risks.
And then vitamin D. At least I take vitamin D. Do you take vitamin D? I take vitamin D too because it's supposed to help with the risk of a bleed and reduce those risks.
Yes, I take vitamin D with vitamin K and calcium.
Vitamin D is one that everybody in Oregon should take because of the lack of sun.
We get a test that I got my vitamin D. I was within.
You can get too much of it also, but it's highly unlikely in Oregon, especially because there's very little sun here.
Yep. Same in DC. I'm surprised that my blood levels for D weren't higher because I do take 500, the 500 dose of it. but I was in normal limits. They did, with my lacosamide, say that I was at a slightly higher limit, slightly higher dose, but that is only by 1 degree or 1 point. I think it was at 11 or something. And I asked my neurologist, he asked me, well, did you fast? I told him, yes. He asked me, well, what time do you take your cosamide? I told him 7 a.m. He asked me, what time did you have your blood test? Like a noonish. Well, yes, your levels may be slightly higher, but it's only by 1 point or whatever they call it. And the fact that these have a half-life and you're on an empty stomach, which makes it even more potent or increases it. And because it's about a 4-hour half-life, that is where I had the highest dosage of my lacosamide. And everything like it is what I used to take Keppra, but I got the Keppra. Well, actually, right after my surgery, I took Keppra and another drug, and it was okay. But then, after my seizures, many years later, I take Keppra, and I got the Keppra rage. I ended up yelling "F you" to people on the street. A friend came and visited me, and I wasn't very kind to him for a while. I kind of lost that friendship. I was taken off that and just put on this Vinpat, lacosamide, and that's kind of helped. I'm hoping eventually to get off it because I'm not a big fan of medications. But for now, I'm going to be on that. And then hopefully I could do the phase 3 Recosian study down the line as well.
It's something you don't really think about it being a side effect of the drug. And people with Tourette syndromes a lot of time will have that reaction also. See,
I have reaction to impulse control, partially because of the CCM and because of my ADHD and autism. But luckily, with my counseling and the adaptive and prayer, I have been less reactive.
What challenges do you face in getting proper care and support for CCM?
I could go on and on and on about that. Oh my goodness, that's one of the issues that I and many people in the Alliance Secure community, as well as I'm thinking yourself and any number of other people face as well, because in part I can't necessarily blame these people per se, or at least completely, because of the fact that everything has changed, especially after COVID, but they have such little time to see patients and things, and understand that they have other doctors have other patients that they need to see. You're not the only patient or things like that. But I've had a very hard time trying to find people outside of initially Dr. Steinberg at Stanford, who actually knew about cavernous malformation, who actually wanted to take the time to hear about my symptoms. When I moved to DC, I take that back. When I moved to DC, I had found a good PCP. I was in the Peace Corps in Mongolia, as I mentioned earlier, and there was a doctor who was also in the Peace Corps who was my PCP. She was very good. But then eventually she left for concierge practice. I cycled through 3 right now neurosurgeons at MedStar Medical. The first one was pretty good until the end when he asked me, "Oh, who is your neurosurgeon, by the way?" And I told him it was Dr. Steinberg. And this person, his attitude flipped immediately. He's like, "Oh, well, I tried to get an internship with him. I don't know what happened." And then he started bad-mouthing Dr. Steinberg. He was saying, "Well, did you get a fusion in your spine?" No, that's something that we talked about. But I decided I didn't want something in my spine area. And Alison had a seizure. So any plan about that would have changed. And he said, "Well, that's wrong." And he kept me at his office for a few minutes to talk about how wrong that was. And he kept spending more time talking about that and saying that I should get these x-rays than he did actually seeing me. and everything. And I ended up getting these x-rays, which I told Dr. Steinberg about. And this is before I found the Alliance. And Dr. Steinberg, you do know that radiation can make these things worse. I hadn't known at the time because I hadn't found the Alliance. So there was that neurosurgeon. Then there was another neurosurgeon who, and granted, this is during COVID, and he had, they have emergencies, but there was a neurosurgeon who made me wait an hour and a half on the telemedicine. And his nurse, like, he's eating lunch again. So it would be one thing if we had an emergency, but like an hour and a half to wait just because you're eating lunch. And he didn't even know a lot about cavernous malformation, nor did the first neurosurgeon. I now have a third neurosurgeon who I also don't like because at least he knows what cavernous malformation is. And it could be a bit of a picky person too, but he's done surgeries and things, but he ordered the MRI, my most recent MRI for me in October because I had symptoms. And then he hasn't even contacted me, or they. Luckily, I do have a new PCP who really is good. It took me a few years to find her, but I just saw her this year and she's good. I'm happy to find her. And she has ordered all these other people for me to see, whether it's a heart doctor because of high cholesterol, whether it's a breast doctor because of family history of breast cancer, because she was saying with your history of not doing radiation, then we need to find someone who could kind of advise on the best plan with this. I have a good dentist and things like that. I do have a DO who does manual manipulation and everything, but it's definitely been a challenge to find people. I remember seeing a neurologist at MedStar too, and she's very good at her job with just plain epilepsy and things. But I think my diagnosis was primary cavernous malformation, secondary to a seizure disorder. And she admitted, well, I don't really know a lot about cavernous malformation, which is like they can't know a lot about everything. I'm kind of surprised that the neuro people don't know about cavernous malformation, whereas they know more about AVMs and things, arterial venous malformations. I don't know why. But she even admitted I sent her something saying, oh, I want to test a 3 MRI. That's the or T3, but that's a test for 3 MRI, the type of MRI you can get because it helps you with the imaging better. And she, well, you don't need that. My neuro person who does imaging said that. I'm like, well, respectfully, the University of Illinois Chicago have a standard of care, and they said that this is the case. But it's funny because in the same email, she go, I don't really know a lot about cavernous malformation, but I ended up finding a neurologist who knows what he's doing, who's treated patients with this condition, who is available. I could call him now, and he'd be available for me. But it's been a journey trying to find people, a multi-year journey and everything. My primary care physicians here have made me find a neurosurgeon here just in case, but I definitely try to get to Stanford if I could with insurance and other issues, or at least to another center of excellence, University of Illinois, UPenn University of Pennsylvania, or UVA University of Virginia. Those are also centers of excellence. I'm in DC right now, but it's definitely been a journey for me, for all the people I've spoken to within the Alliance, and other people at the Every Life Foundation Rare Disease event this year, where they've been having a lot of difficulty finding medical people who know about your condition, who want to take the time to learn about your condition, who want to be able to work with other people to help your condition, and to also say, I don't know. That's one of the things that I like about my new primary care physicians. Well, my job is to help you with your basic health needs and then refer you out to people and then communicate with them to make sure that we have the best treatment plan for you. And she's willing to, the doctors I like most are the ones who are willing to acknowledge the fact that, hey, I acknowledge your lived experience. I even acknowledge that for this particular situation, you may know more about cavernous malformation than I do currently. That's not to mean that I'm not willing to learn and everything. Kind of a partnership where they understand your lived experience, but then also use their medical expertise to provide informed medical decisions and treatments. And they listen to you. For example, I asked my neurologist, oh, can I ever get off this anti-seizure medicine? Well, right now, no, because you have multiple cavernomas. These are the causes of your seizures. But I told him, well, there may be a treatment down the line. Like, well, first of all, that may, but let's keep an open mind. If something changes, we can look at that too. And then I also have to maybe go on cholesterol medicine. And I told my doctor, I really don't want to be on more medications, whether it's that or I have trouble sleeping, which is another issue with cavernous malformation. The glucosamide makes it so I have a very hard time sleeping, and staying asleep. The magnesium has helped with that and everything. And that's helped me with not having as many vivid dreams. They recommended another drug too, but I refused to go on that drug. And everything, they said that they were okay with that decision now and everything. Just, you have to be your own advocate and everything. You have to be okay with firing people who don't want to help you. And you have to be okay with just finding the right people. And luckily I have, finally. And I even have Dr. Steinbach's or do the orders and things for me every year for my MRIs, and I send him my information because of the fact that he knows my case and he's the one who gives me recommendations every year for my MRI. So
Because CCM is a rare disease, and similar to what you probably experienced, Joanna, it is, and Allison, it is inevitable. The proper care is harder to get because of the rarity of it. So sometimes it is inevitable lack of care, or unintended one, I meant to say, lack of care, proper care, because people just simply do not know about it. Some have never even heard about CCM. Others know about it, but do not know how to address it. And some others lack knowledge on how to test for bleeds, if one were to occur. A prime example being using a CT scan in the ER instead of MRI to check for bleeds. Unintended lack of resources, such as also unintended lack of resources, is another factor that plays into not having as much care as I would like. There are not that many centers of excellence. For example, there are multiple centers of excellence throughout the country, but none in Oregon. And because of greedy insurance companies and silly policies, I'm not able to go to a center of excellence or maybe see Dr. Steinberg, who, as Allison said, saved her life and mobility. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. Let's see. But because and moreover, because I see myself as a gender non-conforming woman, I get gaslit at times. People think my conditions are related to mental health, or they just say they don't know about CCM. So that is not easy all the time. Also, because of my disabilities, sometimes people just kind of blow off the whole CCM thing. But since I like to finish with something positive, I would like to say that one other thing about the negative. I had a seizure and had to get a CT scan about to see whether or not I had bleeds. And I always like to keep my mask on, but they had to take it off for the CT scan. I don't know why, because it's not an MRI. It doesn't have med on. And the technician laughed at me and kind of made fun of me, telling me that I'm delusional about masks, and even kind of looked down on the whole CCM diagnosis. But since I like to say something positive or finish off with something positive, I will say that all the doctors at Providence Hospital have worked hard to give me all the tests, MRIs, EEGs that I need. They have even arranged for me to get T5, T3 MRIs. And my neurosurgeon, Dr. Dushmuka, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but it's hard to pronounce it, also knows about CCM. So I feel comfort in knowing that. As a person of autism, I like routine. I first got MRIs at Legacy Hospital down near where I live. And even though they're not part of Providence, they let me continue to get those MRIs there. And I use ready masks, which I'm going to show you a picture of it. The special masks with the
Good, I was able to find Elizabeth's neurosurgeon at through the Alliance to Cure. I posted about my new PCP was this year, and
special N95 masks that use adhesive instead of metal. I'm able to use them, and they always put me at ease and calm me down when I have MRIs. If they make me feel weird, they explain everything that is happening, even though I've had MRIs before. It's routine, and that type of explanation helps people like myself with autism. So I've had both ups and downs, good things and bad things in my journey during cavernous malformation. That's all I'm going. Yeah, so thank you. I'm going to sing. That's all I guess.
So are there any misconceptions about CCM that you wish more people understood?
a lot of them, like Elizabeth said, a lot of the times people think it's in your head, or especially for women, but just in general. Other times people think it's not that big of a issue. You have some of these, and ours, like yours, Joanna, is an invisible disability. People don't think that you are disabled because they can't see it, especially when I got diagnosed the first time in 2017, because I was younger, I was in my 30s, and people say young people don't get sick, young people don't get disabled. Well, they do. Other misconceptions, we had to name maybe the top 3 or 5, other than the one I mentioned about they mentioned earlier, with it being head, was that it's something that once it's you have surgery on it, it's going to go away and you're okay. Another one is that the fact that if then you once you have the surgery, you're not going to have any issues. You're not going to have another risk of a bleed. You're not going to have any other risks such as seizure or stroke. That's another one. Another misconception is that it only affects certain people. No, it could affect everyone. It could affect men, women. It could affect children. It could affect while more people of Hispanic heritage have it, while more people of Jewish heritage have it. It could affect anyone. In fact, they say 1 in 500 people have cavernous malformation, which it's still considered a rare disease, but not as rare as some of the other rare diseases. That's another misconception that everyone will need surgery, but sometimes you don't, either because it's not medically advisable, because it's too risky, or because you're stable enough of things like that. And then I could come up with more, but those I think are some of the top ones that I'm currently remembering. Sometimes it's hard for me to remember things because of my brain thing, as Darla Clayton says, who works for the Alliance.
No misconceptions that I can think about. I am thankful that Allison is the foremost expert in CCM in our family. Because I believe in autonomy and privacy. I'm not going to mention who else has CCM, but other family members do. And Allison is the top expert with CCM in our family. So I can't think of any misconceptions, but thank you for educating the viewers on this side of things.
FYI, so I have done a video on this on the invisible disabilities thing. 70% of rare disease patients are children, and all of the pediatric cancers are also rare. So that just goes to show you there's, like we said, 30 million people with rare conditions. So it's more than cancer and strokes combined.
Oh, darn, I did not know that.
I think they said that 70% of the people have the onset of symptoms as children, but that not some. But I think that luckily many of the people with a rare disease, not all by any means, but many of the people with
Right.
go on at least to reach some adulthood. Therefore, I think that to be more precise, they're saying you have these symptoms begin in childhood, but that I'm not sure the exact numbers of specifically of children versus adults, but I do know of the onset. I know that the good news is that a good percentage of those, at least I think a good percentage of people do go on to become adults.
There are quite a few, and there's always more still becoming adults now. I know with my condition, it wasn't that there was a time where it wasn't expected to, where you weren't expected to live past 30. And there's more and more that are living past 30 now. But they were also going off they originally went off of high homocysteine levels instead of the actual condition, because genetic testing, I know, wasn't around when they first discovered it back in 1960. So genetic testing is actually something that's pretty recent. Since about, I think it was first discovered it started in 1990, I believe. Which when genetic testing started. So it's actually still pretty recent. No, my first stroke happened at 30. I've actually had two of them. And that's pretty much where I'll go from there. How can people support CCM, the CCM community, whether they have the condition or not?
One thing is to learn, as for doctors and things, to learn more about cavernous malformation. We do finally have an ICED or whatever the code is. For a long time, the cavernous malformation community did not have this ICED or whatever. It's a medical code that can be linked directly to your situation. So that's helpful. Because of this and the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation, these actually may become, in some instances, board questions, specific board questions, similar along the lines of cavernous malformation. Being willing to learn about cavernous malformation, like for patients who see doctors with cavernous malformation, take the time to learn about these conditions of your patients. Listen to your patients. I mentioned this similar only, but I re-emphasize the fact that you're just because you're the doctor doesn't mean that this is you take on everything. Yes, use your expertise because you do have expertise, but be willing to work with the patient. A doctor-patient relationship is that. It should be a relationship. It should be a partnership. It shouldn't be the doctor just saying, I know everything and this is what you're going to do and this is what you're going to do that. Well, no, listen to our lived experiences. Listen to everything that we are doing and then work with us. Moreover, I would say that don't just jump for the medical community, to the conclusion that you're drug seeking or that everything is in your head. When I went to an ER one time, somebody thought I was drug seeking, and I had no problem going up and saying, oh, well, the last time I checked, people didn't get their jollies or high on Recosian. There are not other drugs that people could probably get high on and do things like that. So don't have an issue calling out your doctor. Find friends and family members who are willing to understand your condition, but also your role in this all is not to only talk about your rare disease. Yes, it's a big part of your life, but other people have lives as well, and you have to make sure that you hear their situations and everything as well. And then a lot of it is to join the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation, which is what I was talking about earlier. You just could go there and join them. There you could find other patients and caregivers. Of course, the Alliance to Cure always needs money. If you're in a position to donate to the Alliance to Cure, donate. You can donate money or even donate your time and things. Like, I'm not really in a position to donate a lot of money, but I helped reestablish the Alliance to Cure DC chapter. I'm active on the Facebook group and contribute to the conversation, things like that. I try to help people in terms, newer people, just people with questions as well, participate in medical studies. I myself want to participate in the REC949 stage 3 study. I still have to do it, but they are collecting stool at USF, University of San Francisco, to do a gut microbiome test, and you could do things like that. And not only with people with the cavernous malformation. At the Every Life Foundation, I met other people with rare diseases and learned about their rare diseases, learned about other people's rare diseases, like I am with yours, Joanna. There's somebody who may not have the voice or the fortitude that I have to advocate for myself. I met a person who has family members with a rare disease. They have not been able to find people who have this rare disease, meet people in person, or they are not as much like they're very good caretakers. I only met them for a while, to the people in their family that have it, but they're not necessarily going to speak up for themselves or things like that, speak up for other people with other rare diseases. Or just in general, I spoke with somebody who I was going to kitty sit for. Luckily, I didn't end up needing to kitty sit for them, and they may have needed a surgery. And I told them, well, definitely get multiple opinions before you do this and everything. Bottom line, just support one another, those patients, the caregivers, some of the people within the Alliance. They do a lot of help. Like, they help us as the patients, as the members of the Alliance. But oftentimes people won't necessarily ask about them. I try to ask Linda and Donna, how are you doing? And things like that. Support yourself, and then donate your time or money and things. Join the Alliance, learn more about the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation and things like that. And then just be willing to be, in so much as we can, be willing to admit your weaknesses and be willing to work with doctors and be their guinea pigs, not necessarily with studies and things, unless they're like ones that you prove, but like be willing to speak to them, answer their questions, be vulnerable with them and things like that.
Interesting, Allison, you talked about the dual test, because as someone who see this, I think you and I would be very good candidates for this, since I've had to have dual tests for that. I agree with Allison supporting the CCM community. Like, my aunt bought me this t-shirt, I support rare disease awareness. Like it's a zebra, because I guess zebras are a symbol of rare disease. So back to answer more of the question. People can actively listen to CCM patients, caregivers, and their family and friends. People can donate time and money to the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation. The Alliance is a primary group. It's a primary group that supports patients and research treatments and cures. Moreover, supporters can also physically, emotionally, and spiritually support patients. And now I'm going to give shout out to those who have supported me through my CCM journey. My mom has supported me in many ways. One memorable way that she has helped me is that she sat with me during my first MRI. She provided comfort and a calm presence to me as I underwent the MRI. Such love and attention was needed because as a person of autism and anxiety, I needed her to sit with me in the MRI room. As I got the MRI, she just helped me to relax. She then attended my doctor's appointment with Dr. Steinberg, who I was able to see at the time because he was kind enough to review my MRI despite my insurance being based in Oregon. My mom also checks in with me every day and prays for me daily to make sure I have not had a seizure. My friend Marie also sat with me while getting my MRI so that I'd feel more comforted. Now I am used to MRIs, but they still make me feel funky. So my friend George and Susan picked me up after my MRI. Sadly, George passed away, but because I tend to overheat and get to the point of where I feel like I'm going to pass out, caused partially by COVID issues and CCM, George got me this fan. It wraps around your neck and helps you feel more cool. It's very useful in the summertime where we get hot summers in Oregon. Then, of course, my best friend Naomi, to provide spiritual support. My friend Kelly sat with me through an appointment, and Allison has taught me a lot about CCM, as has my aunt and my aunt. They all have encouraged me to keep updated on the MRIs, to go to lectures about them, and to go to the support group. One final thing I want to say is that since I myself believe, and Allison has different thoughts about this, I myself believe that my CCM seizures got worse after COVID. I myself always mask, and I wish that other people mask more. So that's for me, but I know it's different than Allison. So thanks to the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation for the support of knowledge and groups, as well as my friends I mentioned, and doctors who listen. Thank you.
Another thing I learned from while you're on the subject of overheating, something I learned from a physical therapist back when I was doing rehab for my stroke. If you put a washcloth on your forehead and on the back of your neck, it also is supposed to help, which it did help with me a lot.
Yes, this is very true. And thank you. I'm glad to hear it from another person. I learned this when I went to a mission trip in Nicaragua with my church, Trinity Episcopal Cathedral. We didn't go to convert people. We went just to build latrines. And they taught us the trick of putting a cord washcloth on the back of your neck. Also, my best friend's mom, Joy, told me to put my hands into cold water and to put like towels on like your stomach. Another friend told me that, and that helps with cooling and just drinking water and staying hydrated. So Allison and I are twins, but she overheats and I overheat and she is cold all the time, or a lot of the time. So interesting dynamic. We're twins, but we don't share all the same challenges.
Right, and that's true among most family members. I'm the only one in my family with this condition that we know of. So
We have
at
them.
least you guys have somebody else. It's, I think all rare disease patients feel alone at some point in time. Uh, it's that's just a natural part of it. It's it took me 48 years to get to know anybody with it, with my condition.
I'm so
So, and
sorry.
I would have only found somebody through Facebook. So I would have never discovered anybody else with if I hadn't been on Facebook.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm glad you found some other people, and I pray that you found others during your meeting or during your conference on rare disease. I'm happy that you and Allison know each other, and even though we don't all have the same rare disease, at least we share a disease in common. I was not able to go to the event because they don't require masks, which I myself, and I know Allison thinks differently, but I myself believe it's ableist. With rare diseases, I think masks definitely should be required because I think that there are complications that can occur if we get sick. But again, Allison thinks differently. But that's why I didn't go to the event, but I'm so happy that you two went. And I am hoping that you found other people of your condition or other diseases similar to yours so that you can have more in common and a greater support group. Hopefully, you can also find a support group similar to the wonderful Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation.
Oh yeah, we do have a support group. So that there's several of them on Facebook, but there's also HCU Network America does a lot for homocystinuria. It's also related to PKU, which is where they refer you to the first, before they do. So how has been okay? So how has being a twin influenced your journey with CCM? Did you find it helpful to have something going through someone going through the same experience?
And that just more recently spoke. I'm going to hand it over to Allison to answer first, and I'll answer it, and then I'll answer second. Allison, go ahead.
We have them. Our covenant was she has some in her brainstem and everything, but we both have them in our left and right frontotemporal lobes, which is interesting. And of course, I have my support community, but Elizabeth and I are able to support each other in ways that no one else can, being twins and everything. I kind of feel proud of the fact that, well, proud of the fact because it's a reality that I have to live with. It's not like I can change it or anything. The fact that I was the first person in the family to have these symptoms and have surgery, I'm proud of the fact that I can help Elizabeth and other people in the family sort of navigate this. I told her about the Alliance to Cure. I gave her information like that. Down the line, we may participate in studies down the line, whatever those may be, which may provide invaluable research to people who are conducting studies on cavernous malformation, whether it be for a drug or anything like that. But we'll see what happens down the line there. And the fact that sometimes some of the things that I tell doctors about with Elizabeth, then my new PCP is like, oh, well, given that your twin has this and then you have cavernous malformation, so on, they kind of come up with a standard of care. They factor that into their standard of care, I should say, and their treatment plans and all of that too. We are also able to just sometimes compare symptoms and things. For example, we just learned about the whole sleep thing. We talked about our issues with the anti-seizure medicines and things like that, or any other issues, able to compare and contrast and then use the alliance to kind of get more guidance and everything. And then I think it's just been helpful for doctors to be able to kind of look at our progressions side by side.
think we just had a twin moment, Allison, because we have similar thoughts on this. Allison and I share such a bond that we do not have with others. We tell each other things that we do not tell anyone else. We discuss common struggles we have and because of CCM and our disabilities. The fact that we both share this common rare disease does make me feel closer to her and makes me feel less alone. Especially after I see her in support group, I feel a special bond related to CCM. I like knowing that she and I both have lived the life of being a person with rare disease and disabilities. However, if for some reason they're able to find a cure for CCM and only Allison is cured, I'd be very happy because I want to see everybody be healed from cavernous malformation. And I would still feel close to Allison, even if she were cured and I were not. So yes, we share a special bond because of the CCM, and we have similar symptoms, but not exactly the same, like she's being over more cold and me being more hot, me having the CCMs in the brainstem and her not, and then our religious beliefs are different. I take Kepra, she does not. So we have some similarities and some differences, including like our beliefs on masking and stuff. But overall, we share the same rare disease, and I think that those similarities and differences help to draw us closer together. And
what advice would you give to others who have who are navigating a rare disease, especially those with family members who share the condition?
I have lots of advice, but my top 5, which we kind of discussed one of them before, is that you're not alone. Even though you may think you're alone, at least with the vast majority of these rare diseases, they are the ultra rare ones where you may be alone. But for most of us, you're not alone. It may take you a while to come to this conclusion, may take you a while to meet people with your rare disease. All 3 of us had these situations, with the exception of our family members. But I met other people with the rare disease, and it's just, you don't want anyone else to have a rare disease or your rare disease or any rare disease, but knowing that you're not alone is a big one. Number 2 is you have to be your own self-advocate. Even your family and friends, they love you. They're going to be very, very supportive of you and everything. But ultimately, you are living your individual life with a rare disease. And as much help as the doctors, as your family, as the alliance give you, you have to be your own best self-advocate and everything. Don't be afraid to fire doctors, find new doctors. Don't be afraid to ask them, oh, may I record this? Or may I get notes and things? When I saw my PCP, I asked him, will you write all of this down? Because otherwise I will forget, and things like that. Sometimes you may need to go with other people to your appointments. Usually just go to my MRIs alone after I had my first couple, because like, it is an MRI. If they let you leave, that's a very good sign and everything. But this year I asked somebody to come with me because I had some strange symptoms and whatever. And they are 2 different doctors, Dr. Steinberg, who I trust implicitly, and my doctor at MedStar ordered 2 different tests, one with contrast. And I basically told the tech, nope, no contrast music over the doctor ordered. I'm like, well, I don't care. I'm not going to do contrast. And you can put whatever you want in the file. They wanted me to maybe sign something, but I refused to sign it because my neurosurgeon who files my case, who diagnosed me, and everything, he doesn't recommend contrast. There's some examples. Third would be to also consider the caretakers, because yes, a lot of the lot of focus is on the patient. And yes, we go through a lot, but so do the caregivers. I think just remember them. Fourth would be to just try to support others with the rare diseases and things like that. It's somewhat hard because, like, you want your rare disease to be prioritized and things, but none of the rare diseases, I think, can find commonality, and just providing support and things for other people as well and things is good. And then lastly, just knowing that you can have your good days and your bad days. Try to do your best to represent the rare disease community, but also own up to things, like take self-responsibility. You can't just blame everything on your disability or your rare disease, which might be nice at times, but just take self-responsibility, but know what areas of your life may be affected because of your rare disease and everything like that. So just know yourself. You're your best person, but also work within the expert community to be able to make sure that you get the help that you need and that you can help others and things. So to be my top 5.
I echo a lot of what you said, Allison. Knowing that you're not alone is less isolating. So knowing other people who have cavernous malformation is a wonderful thing. Conversing with you, Joanna, who has another rare disease, and the fact that we're both in the union together helps my mind be more at ease. Yeah, self-advocating for yourself is also essential. Like for me, advocating for me to be able to wear these ready masks and finding doctors who believe what I have to say. Allison, for example, also is someone who acted as a guide for me because she helped find the doctor, I'm having a hard time pronouncing his name, who knows about CCM. They're having people who have CCM, they have knowledge. It's important. And yes, being kind and gentle to yourself when you have bad days is important. Being grateful for when you have good days, and having family and friends that check in on you are all keys to dealing with CCM. Of course, doing what they recommend, wearing helmets, not taking baths alone, limiting blood thinners, etc., and using naturopathic medicines are also important, as is for me, and I know Allison has different beliefs about this. For me, prayer types of suggestions that I have for those struggling with rare disease, and not thinking or jumping to conclusion and catastrophizing, not thinking that every issue is going to cause a bleed or every issue is related to CCM. I tend to think the worst case scenario sometimes. Oh, I have a headache. Oh, I have a stomach ache. Oh, it could be a stroke. It could be this. So not jumping to conclusions and giving the anxiety up to God, surrendering that, are helpful to me. So loving yourself, finding support groups, staying calm, and getting your yearly MRIs, and the Alliance to Cure Cavernous Malformation are helpful. No, you're not alone, and just be there to maybe pray for a cure. And I, like Allison, I'm going to try to participate in studies. Probably not the resurgent one, because they said that COVID-19 may be a risk factor. They don't know yet, but other studies, perhaps. And yes, I agree. It would be good for Allison and I to do studies since we're twins, and comparing us would probably be fascinating. So yes, loving yourself and trusting in God, etc., are things that I use to help me on the journey of finding information. That's all. Thank
And
you.
nice too, because like we all have to take precautions because of our rare disease. You should take those precautions, but don't let it stop you from living your life. I went to Japan a couple of years ago, to, despite having my condition, I would still eat certain foods sometimes that I should. Um, avoid and things.
Looking ahead, what are your hopes for CCM research, treatment, and awareness?
The Alliance, I'm very lucky. We're very lucky, among others, I'm sure. But due to the Alliance to Cure, we had a lot more hope than some of these rare diseases. As I mentioned, Recosian Pharmeceuticals, REC-949 studies maybe going to come and be the first industry treatment, but they're not only doing that prior to all of this REC-949, a lot of the studies are just scientific, came out of universities, came from NIH, FDA, things like that, which is helpful. But they were able to make it attractive enough for a drug company to maybe come up with a cure, being able to have places like Stanford and University of Illinois, Chicago, willing to take their research and studies and show to people. One of the things that makes the Alliance unique, or maybe unique, is that they have these scientific conferences and people from different medical companies, hospitals, scientists come together and they just talk about the cavernous malformation research, where we are, what they're doing, and things like that. I'm very excited also about guided focused ultrasound, whereas 20-ish years ago when the Alliance first got established, they were just support. There was really nothing. And if you look at this progression, there used to be they did a state of the Alliance community type thing this last year, 2024, at the end. And when you look at when they were first created, they had like these 2 or 3 things, and now they have a lot of different things in the pipeline. Some work, some don't, but they also have their own mouse lab at the Alliance to cure, which I didn't know Elizabeth has some problems with mice, and they have some issues with mice studies and things, but nevertheless, this is huge for the Alliance because they're able to take drugs that may work for CCM and direct the lab to try these drugs on mice. So I think that hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll have maybe not a cure right now. REC-949 is not a cure, but a treatment and things like that. I'm most excited about guided focused ultrasound, even though my neurologist had some issues about that. I'm nevertheless most excited about guided focused ultrasound as possibly a cure and things like that. And I also think the fact that we have our own code now for cavernous malformation means that people will understand it better. People will think it's less made up in your head. People will, the fact that now it's going to be on boards and things, and that more people are going to study, including the fact that the Alliance is having a small little scholarship things for people who study the condition and things. It means that not only will treatment and or cures become possibilities, which is the biggest thing, but also just knowledge is becoming better within both the neuro community, which is what's most needed, as well as just the general medical community as well. And because our drug is not as rare as other people, there are companies who want to maybe study the condition as well, and the fact that these people are willing, some of them are willing to work together, learn from each other, and a lot of this information is being published into journals and things as well, which is always helpful and everything. Now, I know they say this about a lot of the drugs, and rare diseases, which I concede, but the fact that we have this drug going to phase 3, the fact that we have these companies and other people willing to study the condition really means that there may be a treatment down the line, at least for many of us. I can't say the same about people with CCM3. And the one thing that people are upset about, among other things, is that they think that there should be a cure. They think, oh, well, if I'm cured of the CCMs or treated for the CCMs, that means I won't have seizures, that means I won't have headaches. Well, yes, those are important things too, but mostly let's treat or cure the condition, and then let's worry about the other things next.
I am grateful for the research being done. I am scared that because of these political issues and things that are happening, that there's not going to be as much research for your condition, Joanna, or mine. I'm happy that Recosian is still going through the research because of the money they receive. And I'm hoping that the guided focus ultrasound will, I believe that's what it is, will continue to be researched. I encourage drug companies to make and other medical researchers to make the product affordable, because I believe that we all have basic rights: food, water, shelter, medical care, etc. So make it affordable so that everybody can have it. When I had C. diff, I had to take Difficid, which is not generic, so I had to fight to get it. So make it affordable, because that's a human right. The CEO at Recosian has said that he's going to try his best to make it affordable, but I don't know for sure until it actually happens. I have faith that he will, to make it affordable. And I just want people to listen more to patients, and for people to respect research into rare diseases by funding it, and hopefully through things that don't need animal testing, because I love animals, and for babies. So again, I'm hopeful about the treatments and the cures. I'm hoping that they can find both allopathic, more traditional pharmaceuticals, and homeopathic remedies to deal with CCM. And I pray for a cure or a treatment to be very effective.
I know there's a so if you do have a problem, if there is a treatment that comes out later on that is too expensive, the majority of the drugs for rare diseases are really expensive. There are the National Organization for Rare Diseases really can help out a lot with that stuff financially. There's also normally plans with the drug companies will also support sometimes people who are on lower incomes, and also hospitals a lot of times have different plans also that can help with that.
Yeah. And Chris Gibson, the CEO of the Alliance, is one person where he'd do everything in his power to make it affordable. I know a lot of people say, oh, the CEO of the drug companies are evil, and some of them are not very good people, or they wouldn't say necessarily very good people. Like they worry more about money than anything else. But I've met Chris Gibson in person once in Miami, and he had this wall of people, mostly children, who hadn't made it because they couldn't come up with a treatment for rare cancer soon enough. And he was tearing up talking about it, and not in the way where like you put a tack in your sock and you could cry on a queue and everything. And then so he was genuinely trying to help people, in so much like he does understand that he's accountable to the stockholders, the board of directors. In Recosian's case, there are a lot of stockholders who are patients, which is nice and everything there. But I also heard him speak. He came and spoke to our specific Alliance the Cure community and addressed that question. He wants to do as much as he can to work with the Alliance, his own company, or whomever ends up getting the product and things like that to try to make it affordable. And then there's another organization that helps with that too, but I don't have their card on me right now, but I met them at the event this year.
Mhm.
I think it's the Assistance Fund, something like that.
So that brings us to the end of today's episode. A huge thank you to Allison and Elizabeth for joining me today and sharing their journey with cerebral cavernous malformation. Your insights, experiences, and experiences are invaluable. And I truly appreciate you both for taking the time to be with me here. To all our listeners and viewers, if you enjoyed this conversation, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rare Chef, and my podcast, Rare Connection, so you don't miss future episodes. You can also follow Rare Connection on Facebook. Where I have both a page and a group where you can join the discussion, along with X and LinkedIn. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you are listening to on another platform, you can reach out by clicking on the send me a text link in the show notes. There's also a support the show link in the to help keep the conversation going. Before we go, I want to remind everyone that if you are someone you know is struggling, help is available. You can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And in the U.S., if you are outside the U.S., please reach out to local resources. You are not alone. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on Rare Connection.